might sleep longer. I might sleep all night. Who knows? And then I can just get up and drive the rest of the way home. Just park somewhere. Rest stop or anywhere. Just run the heater real good before I stop and climb in the back and try to get a couple hours of sleep. I could stop at a rest area. I don't think they'd bother me. And once you get to Dubuque, you're almost there. I mean, it's there's 2 lanes though. For most of the rest of the trip, it's 2 lanes, but it's not real far. The main part of it's going to be between here and Dubuque. That's a ways. From here to Dubuque is a bit of a distance. Oh, and what are they saying on the radio?
Put another lap on the multiple laps downtown the Reddick.
Is severe citric acid, and it's quite harsh on a lot of vegetables and meats because most animals and plants, except for bacteria and yeast, don't synthesize vinegar. And so when it comes to the contact with these tissues, it actually breaks them down very well. So in this case, we're not actually adding a lot. It's like a couple of drops of vinegar. And then what that does is that it brings out the flavor of the onions. It makes them taste better. And if you're using red onions or red shallots, that are, the color becomes even bolder because they get their color from a pigment called anthocyanin, and that turns bright pink at onset. And so you get this lovely visual brightness as well as the color.
Oh, cool. And it breaks it down to sort of release a little more. That's sort of interesting.
Yeah.
And when you say 1 layer, do you mean literally 1 layer, like there is 1 piece of onion on the pan and air above it, or do you just mean like flat?
Oh, I'm not that stringent. I'm not that stringent on it. What I mean is that you just lay them out in a fine, thin layer, so it's just even, so they all cook at the same rate, hopefully. And in most ovens anyway, that really doesn't happen. Nothing cooks because your corners of the oven are usually hotter than the center of the oven. So it's trying to move them around a little bit, redistribute them again, so you get good, even browning.
And what comes out? Does it come out like super crispy, like crackly, crunchy crispy?
Oh yeah, it does. So with the onions and shallots, what I've noticed is that they turn crispier. You're using less oil. Because if you're using a saucepan, sometimes I find myself adding more and more oil to prevent them from burning to the bottom of the saucepan.
Yeah.
But if you're using the oven, they crisp much better because the hot air just does a much better job, especially if you turn on the convection setting of your oven, they'll cook even faster. You just have to watch and make sure they don't burn.
Yeah. How do you keep them from getting soggy, like after you store them? And when they're done, you let them cool, and then when you're storing them, do they stay crisp?
So that's a really important thing to do that you just mentioned. Let them cool completely before you first put them in any kind of storage container, be it a zip-top bag or a glass container or plastic container, because if you put them hot in there, that's the first thing that happens. You have condensation from the moisture coming out from the vegetables, and then it makes everything soft. Another thing that I do is I tend to save, because I'm a pack rat, I tend to save those little silica gel bead bags that come with dried seaweed, and those food
look at that
packages.
wheel.
I save those and reuse them a lot, and it's chemically inert. It's safe for us, which is why they come packaged in food. And I
that's
save those
good to
bags
know.
and then put them with the onions.
But look at that wheel on that car.
In the same container, and that absorbs most of the moisture.
That's looking
Another thing
bad.
you could do is you could freeze them.
Oh, cool. Okay, great. What do you have to put them on?
Oh, so if I'm having a poke bowl,
I wonder if there's a sound coming from that,
it's
or
so nice to have those crunchy shallots on top.
don't want to follow him too
even
close
for
if
breakfast,
something
sometimes
happens to that wheel.
I'm not a big breakfast person by nature. I get through the day just eating 2 hot-boiled eggs in the morning, but sometimes I need something more to go along with it. So I'll add blue cheese, kimchi, and crispy shallots. If I'm making a salad, sometimes I'll throw crispy shallots in there. And if I'm making a dal, that's a really another great
Yeah, this guy's Indian. I thought he was.
Crispy shallots on top, it just makes it so much more exciting. And then of course, with the crispy shallot, you can season them also any way you want once they're done cooking. You could do salt and pepper. You could also add togarashi, whatever you want, za'atar, anything.
Spice mixes.
Yeah, and so you could make it much more personalized to what you like.
Yeah, I love that. Let's move to another thing that you like to do, fried lentils.
Yeah, so fried lentils are a common snack in India, and I think it parts other parts of South Asia too. And I get the mung beans that are skimmed or whole, and I soak them in water, pat them dry, and then partially cook them where they're not falling apart. I just want them to hold their texture, but they're cooked still. And then what I do is, again, I pat them dry.
And you boil the water in there.
Yeah, you want them to be cooked all the way, and then, but you just don't want them to be mushy. You want them to retain their structure. And then what I do is pat them dry, and then I fry them in hot oil in a couple of batches. Drain the oil out, and then season them while they're hot with salt and store those.
How about that?
Fried lentils are a common snack, like I said, in Indian cooking. But I also find that if I'm making a salad, say if I don't have shallots on hand, I'm craving something crunchy, I can toss that in there.
So you can fry those.
This with scallops, so what I do is a weird combination, but it works well. You take scallops, you sear them anyhow you want, put them on a plate, and then put some lime juice on top with these crispy fried lentils, and it tastes so good, because you've got that combination of crunchy, the soft, creamy texture of the scallop. It's so good.
Oh, that sounds great. I love lentils. And to me, they have almost like a little bit more of a nutty flavor than a beany flavor, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
they keep that flavor when they're fried, or is it a different kind of flavor?
So I think the nuttiness becomes much more pronounced and much more fragrant. And honestly, anything fried always tastes better. So in that, I think it just improves lentils, and even like a person.
I never
who
thought of
doesn't eat
frying
lentils
them.
at
Jeez.
some point.
Let's go to one more. So
Probably not
we
as
talked
healthy,
about the
though.
oven, we talked about the fire. Now we're going to be somewhat controversial, but often beloved air fryer, which is sort of basically a convection oven. You have fried jalapenos that you do in the air fryer. Tell me about those.
So what I do is I cut the jalapenos up, usually in just slices, and I don't de-stem them, I keep the seeds on, and then what I do is I toss them in a little bit of salt, just to get some of the water out through osmosis, and then I rinse quickly with cold running tap water and pat them dry, and then I put them in buttermilk and season the buttermilk with a little bit of semolina or all-purpose flour, and then stick them into
He's
the
tailgating
convection
him.
oven and then cook them.
He
And,
could pass.
Add a few
Probably
tablespoons
doesn't
of
know it,
oil
but you
to
can
the
follow him so
semolina,
close he
because
can't
with
see
an
no
air
one's
fryer,
coming.
You still need oil, you're just using less. Otherwise it'll taste too bitter. And put that in the air fryer and then let it sit there until it turns golden brown and crispy. And then that's a
That
really
wheel
great
is-
way, again, of having some like a crunchy add-on for your food in the pantry.
Wait, so after you sliced and salted and rinsed the jalapenos, you put them in buttermilk, and then you scoop them out of buttermilk?
With
And
a
then-
fork, I just pick them up. You don't want
You're
too much
basically
liquid.
like blending them. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Look at that wheel.
use,
I mean-
Japanese breadcrumbs, the panko breadcrumbs. Those work really well. Those are actually probably one of the crunchiest textures you'll find.
See that wheel?
But, and again, that's
I'm gonna
something
slow
that
back
you can
down
also
now. I don't
season
wanna
the
follow
way
him
you
too
want to
close.
individualize it, or personalize it rather for your taste. You can use a
Something
bunch
out
of
of
different
alignment.
seasonings, and it's just such a nice thing to have at home.
Cool. I can imagine that. It's crispy, it's a little spicy, and just throw that on top of something.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Nick. These are great ideas, and I really can't wait to fry some lentils.
Yeah, let me know how that works out for you.
Nick Sharma is the award-winning author
Sharma.
of Season and The Flavor Equation. You can find his recipe for chicken congee, topped with crispy shallots, at splendourtable.org. And that is our show for the week. Thank you for listening, and talk to you next week.
Okay, we'll probably get the weather now for this
Funny
area.
People supported by Seed. Seed's DSO